Okay, I think we are live now. Welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome. Okay, I think I'm gonna wait a little bit more here to let people in. Let me post on my Instagram here. If you guys aren't following my Instagram, make sure you guys follow my Instagram at ChartsFocus1. The link should be down below. If it's not a link, my ad should be there for Instagram. Okay, so we will start in like around 5 minutes. Hey Joel, nice to see you in here. Okay, we have about 3 more minutes left before we start here. Thank you all for your patience. Okay. I always know that more people come in around maybe once I'm like 15 minutes in in the chat, in the live here. So, you know, it is what it is. I just hope people are looking at the replay. I always know that. Oops, my replay. Okay. All right. We have 2 more minutes. I hope everyone had a great day. So the first thing that I'm going to start off with is SPY. All right, and I'm going to explain a pretty daring trade I took today, and explain why it was very daring and risky. But it was a pretty good trade overall. Okay, we're going to start at 7:15 on the dot here. All right.
Aren't you live?
Okay, it is 7:15. All right, that was 5 minutes. Okay, so let's start. So let's look at SPY first of all. And let me explain what I did today. Why I was so daring and a little bit risky here. So I chose 0 DTE, so 0 days to expiration. contracts today is specifically 434. Since 434 was my initial price target, but obviously we got a lot higher. But the reason why I chose 434 was that was the previous level of support yesterday, and I knew that since we gapped down today, if you try to fill in the gap and SPY, you guys have to remember that SPY always fills in the gap. All right, if it's a gap down or gap up, eventually. So with this gap down today, I made a probability type of trade where I thought that, you know, since SPY does fill in every gap, I can take the opportunity here and kind of bet on the fact that, and the reason why I say bet is because I took on a 0 day to expiration contract, which is very, very, very risky. It's literally almost gambling. So I decided to take that bet because of the fact that there's more than half of a chance or a probability that, or percentage, that SPY will fill in the gap today, and luckily it did. So with this 434 resistance, all right, that was going to be my target. Now, before I kind of get in a little more into why I got into this trade, let's go out and look at the 5-minute time frame. So I always look at, I always interchange between the time frames from the 5-minute to the 15-minute. And the reason why is that the 5-minute tells me exactly where I can possibly enter, and the 15-minute tells me which way the momentum is going. All right. I won't go much into detail on how that works because that's one of my strategies I teach on the Forex program, so I won't be going deeply into that. But on the 5-minute time frame, the place that I entered exactly was on this candlestick right here. Okay, right there. Now, this is a very, very early entry, as you guys can tell. I got in exactly around 430 point, I would say around 65 to 67-ish. Once I saw that 430.50 was holding, since 430.50 is a whole number. So I thought that maybe there could be some momentum movement to fill in the gap, because sometimes SPY likes to just move immediately, right, into the gap after initial sell-off in the morning that we always have. But that did not happen, obviously. So with my 0DTE contracts, right, so if I'm playing 0DTE contracts, I always have the mindset of I'm either going to win or I'm going to lose it all, right? Because it's going to be it's contracts that are going to expire on the same day, right, at market close. So they have a lot of volatility because of that, right? And it's because of the Greeks, those specific contracts. Now, for 0DTEs, right, since I got in a little bit early right here, around 430.65 to 67-ish, if I remember correctly, I decided that, okay, so we have previous levels of support here, right, around 429.20-ish or 25-ish. And how do I know this? Well, just look at the previous action the past 2 to 3 days, right? 3 trading days specifically. We've been using this area 429 as a level of support, resistance, right? Level of support here, level of resistance here, and level of support right here, right? Relatively close. And so I drew a line here, and as the day went by, right, slowly, okay, and this is where I decided to switch to the 15-minute time frame after my entry, right, because I want to look at the momentum. So I saw that we saw a lot of immediately low buying and low selling volume coming in, right? How do I know this? Well, like, take a look at the 15-minute time frame volume candlesticks here. After the initial morning sell-off, right, bounce and the sell-off, this sell-off right here on the 15-minute time frame wasn't significant enough, right? And that's the reason why we bounced a lot harder at 427.50, which was also a previous level of support. So after we bounced here, right, after you got some good buying volume coming in after a very low selling volume, I thought that maybe, just maybe, right, and for the new viewers who are coming in, I am doing my current SPY trade today that I took, and the reason why I chose the DTE contracts as well, but I already explained that, so make sure you guys watch the playback. But with this, right, so with this 15-minute time frame, now that I am in and I'm a little bit early, I decided to hold, okay? And the reason why I decided to hold is that if we break, right, below 429 completely, since support was around 429.20-ish to 0.25-ish, if we break below 429, I'm completely out, right? If those contracts are not zero, but it have a value of 0 by the time, right? But the contracts actually stayed above zero. They're around 0.15.17 when the price is around 429.50ish. So I decided to still hold, right? Since we still have a couple hours left until around like 4 hours to 5 hours, I think. So, I decided to hold, right? It was risky, but you know what? I got in with the mindset of staying patient, even with a all or nothing situation, right? Obviously, I could have gotten contracts that expired at least 2 days from now, on Friday, right? Or even next week, but I wanted to catch that volatility. So we decided to make resistance around 431.20ish, right? And I decided to make a low right here, which also happened to be a level of support multiple times in the past 2 to 3 days. So everything was working out, right? The price was respecting my levels that I've drawn on 431.20ish, excuse me, and then support around 429.20 to 25ish. And so with that stop loss in mind of if 429 fails, right, 429 fails, I will get out completely. However, since I saw that my 0DT contracts are holding their value at around 0.15 to 0.17ish, I decided to hold, even if, if it broke below 429, I'm pretty sure it would have gone to zero, since my contracts have a strike of 434, which is significantly far away from 429. So that's why it occurred to me that I should kind of hold this to see where it can go, since I also had a psychological mentality through this of all or nothing kind of type of trade, right? So with that in mind, I just decided to hold and just watch the charts as the candlesticks went up and down. And so after I saw that, after an hour went by, I saw that the price was continuously respecting both the support here and both the resistance here. So I decided to keep on holding, and eventually around after afternoon Eastern Standard Time, so around 1 o'clock, after the traders came back to the desks, right, after the lunch around 12 p.m., they came back and we saw a lot more volume coming in. All right, and we saw a lot of volume coming in into power hour as well. And eventually we broke out above 431.20ish, which I wanted to see. And eventually we came all the way up to 434, which was my profit target. And I took out my profits right here. All right, around 434.20-ish. All right, I think it was exactly 433.20. 434.20 is when I immediately took profits there. And so that was a good, almost a 90% trade there. I was able to hold through with the 15-minute time frame here, since I'm able to see the momentum. Because if I was stuck in a 5-minute time frame, right, I probably would have sold right here, right, due to too many candlesticks here, right? And that's the reason why, like the 15-minute time frame, it kind of takes you out of that selling too early type of mentality. And I tend to do that usually on day trades or scalps like this. So I always look at the 15-minute time frame for momentum. So I'm glad that I was able to avoid that common mistake that I've painfully learned in the past few years. But I was able to hold all the way through to my profit target and even a little more. And then even if after I took profits, I also did another trade where I decided to short SPY here, because I figured that this run here, right, needed some consolidation. And indeed, we started to see that consolidation, a little bit of profit taking into 434, which makes sense, right? Because we have a lot of sellers here. How did I know? Well, take a look right here. Right, we saw a lot of selling coming in, and we had a lot of selling in the past previous days as well at 434. So I took that probability, and for the fact that on the 15-minute time frame, we're kind of overextended here on the 15-minute time frame. We have back-to-back consecutive green candlesticks, at least 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, let's take it from the moment of the breakout here. So we use this as the first candle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 candlesticks that are green back to back, right? That's a little bit overextended on the 15-minute time frame. If I wanted to see more of a run, I would want to see at least 2 or 1 red candlestick in between these 5 green candlesticks, okay? Which will give me more of a confident psychological state for me to hold on longer and to see that the price will start to go higher, even higher than 434. But I didn't see that, right? And so with all these different technical pinpoints lining up together, right? So first one is 434 resistance, second is overextension, and then third is the 200 SMA catching up here, right? I had an opportunity to scalp to the downside again, right? And so I got in puts around 434.15.17ish around there, and I waited and waited, and eventually we broke 434, and I took profits a little bit too early actually, around 433.60ish, right? And why? Well, because I started to see a little bit of bounce here, right, from the buyers who are buying right here on these two candlesticks, and so I was like, okay, maybe we can start bouncing all the way back to 434. Right, and so I took profits, which was a reasonable profit target, but obviously I probably could have stayed a little bit longer. But you know, that's what happens. I already had a good trade here. There's a little tiny fun trade I used with profits, so that was a little nice move. And then, of course, if you guys were watching the markets here, right here was a nice end to the day. We ended right at 435 almost, right? We could have ended up around 435, but we went all the way up to 435.11, and we came back down and ended right below it. So tomorrow, what am I going to expect? Since well, first of all, we have to have this premise, right? If we don't have a pretty overnight futures action, so if we don't have more than 1% move downward, or even 0.50%, I would expect us to open at least relatively around 434 to 435 range. Hopefully, if we have a small gap down, I would want to see us at 434 bounce and then reject off of 435 and then kind of consolidate right here, right? So I would want something like this, right? So we end up right here and we kind of consolidate up here, right? And eventually break above 435 and head towards 436.50 to 0.55ish, and eventually to 437. So basically I am bullish, because if you look at the last, well, you guys should always be looking at the last 15-minute candlestick. If you guys are new here right now, welcome. I'm explaining my SPY trade. I'm almost done with my explanation. So if you guys are late to this trade here, make sure you guys are watching that replay when I post this, because it's going to be posted right after this stream ends. So make sure you guys watch. I talk about some very key pointers here, very important, significant key pointers. So make sure you guys watch that, all right? Now, what was I saying here? Right, so the last 15-minute candlestick here is very, very important. Why? Because that's when a lot of trading happens. Right, there's a lot of big institutional traders making their block trades, these huge orders, right? And hey, welcome, Mr. Pudding. Glad to see you back here. And that's when they either sell the position or they position themselves into a new trade overnight, right? Because a lot of trading happens overnight on futures. Well, a lot of the price action happens overnight. Let me rephrase that, right? So a lot of price action happens overnight on futures, and a lot of positioning of buying or selling comes in at the last 15 minutes. And that's the reason why, if you look at the 15-minute time frame, we see this huge amount of volume every single time we either open or close. Okay, and so on the closing 15-minute candle, you can kind of gauge how the next day will be, right? So that's the reason why I'm a little bit bullish, because we ended up bullish. First of all, right, at the very least almost half of the day, we had bullish action after a solid consolidation phase here in the early hours of trading, and all the way into after lunchtime, when traders came back to the desk, floor traders here, after lunch, we saw a huge amount of influx of volume coming in, even though I did want to see a little bit more volume compared to the selling volume that we had yesterday at close. So tomorrow I would be expecting a little bit more of a bullish run. I would expect a very small bullish run into 436, but make sure you guys are watching these levels. All right, so 435, 434, and 436. Okay, so 434 will be your significant level support, but if you fail that level, the next level support will be 433. All right, so make sure it's visible for you guys. All right, so let's have a little tiny summary here. 434, 433 will be your levels of support. And then for, I would say 435.50-ish would also be your level of resistance. And then 436.50-ish, and then eventually 437, which will be my profit target if I decide to do another SPY trade using Friday expiring contracts. Okay. All right, so that's it for my trade review there. If anyone is new in here, please make sure you guys watch the beginning of this live because I explain everything from top to bottom of how I traded this. So make sure you guys watch. But start submitting your tickers in the live chat. But before I go into your tickers and while you guys are submitting your tickers, I'm going to go over some charts. So AMC. Okay, so AMC was posted last night on my story. It was free game. All right, I'm pretty sure everyone likes free stuff, so I decided to post that on my story. And also, AMC is actually an extra name that I was watching. I told my subscribers on Sunday when the newsletter sent out that AMC is going to be one of my extra watches, and I'm glad it was because AMC is looking very, very good. And there's huge positions being opened. I think a total of more than a million at the very least, right? So more than a million that's been opened on AMC, except all of them, I think 5 of them or 4 of them are puts, so they're bearish, and then 1 of them is only calls, right? So AMC can implode to the downside and not explode higher, right? So they can implode to the downside, but based on that big trade, if we break above 38 here, right, that trader is going to have to sell out, right? They're going to have to sell the position, eventually giving in, right, of all those put contracts that he bought or she bought, and he's going to have to close his position, and basically he's going to be short squeezed, right? So if that happens, there should be a big amount of volume coming in at 38, and then 38.50-ish, and eventually a big movement back towards 40 and 41.50-ish. All right, so make sure you guys are watching AMC here because AMC looks ready to explode if we're able to push out that big short seller there with put contracts. Okay, so Joel, we have our first name here. Let's look at Apple. All right, let's look at Apple. So Apple had a pretty good day. So yesterday we had this nice bullish movement as we start to find some support around, I would say around a range of 138.30-ish to around 139-ish as a whole number. Okay, so that'll be your support area or demand area that we've been looking at. But obviously I would want to see a lot more volume than this, a lot more buying volume, which is why I think the selling is not over. We're still in a correction. So you guys had to be watching out for that. But overall, this is a good bounce today and yesterday. So, especially yesterday where we were able to hold above 140 and eventually go all the way to 142. But obviously, like today, we saw a lot of names gap down since Dow was opening up almost 300 points. So that was not good. But with Apple here, I would say today was phenomenal as well, but the only thing is this volume, right? So what's happening here, okay, so this is the same thing with SPY right now as well, all right? There's a lot of selling that happened at the top, right? But there's not a lot of volume at the bottom here as support. And what does that tell me? That tells me that people are not buying the support buys here, right? So I want to see a lot more volume coming in, right? Instead of seeing the past volume, there's a lot of selling volume here, and that still tells me that's basically telling me that there's a lot of sellers still present at every single level of resistance, major levels of resistance. If we're looking at the daily time frame, so if you're looking at the support here, right, and if you're looking at the bounces, and you take a notice that the volume is very low compared to the selling volume that we had at the tops here, that tells you that not a lot of people are buying. So you guys have to be careful here. All right, so with that in mind, if I look at the 15-minute time frame, Apple obviously is going to follow exactly what SPY is doing, since Apple has a lot of weight in SPY, right? So Apple here, all right, as we're going up and we're basically, right, parallel movements with SPY, we regained the high that we made yesterday, and we closed above a major level of resistance. So Apple is going to be a continuous watch for me as well tomorrow, in accordance and in parallel with SPY as we continue upwards. But like we saw on the SPY on the 15-minute time frame, the 200 SMA has caught up, right? So I'm going to be expecting a sell-off, maybe back towards, right, this support level here, which should be around 141.10, right? So if you see a support bounce here, which will also be converging with the 50 SMA here, right, that should provide enough of a bounce and support for us to come back above 141.50-ish and eventually back to 142. Okay, so I'm going to be expecting the same type of action that I explained to you on SPY. So that's kind of my views on Apple there, Joel. I hope that makes sense. But if you want me to go a little more into detail here, if Apple fails 141, we're immediately going to come back down to 140 here, all right? And if you fail 140, we'll immediately come back down to 139.50-ish, all right? So those are kind of your levels there. If you want to scalp, I mean, I would highly recommend that you scalp in this environment. But if you're having these volatile days, right, up, down, and if we have another down day tomorrow, you can most definitely have an entry around 141.50-ish at that rejection with a lot of selling volume coming in, and then take profits at 141. And if we break 141, then we take profits at 140.50-ish. Right? So that's a entire trade plan there for you. Oh, A firm, Mr. Pudding, A firm. This is a trade I did not get in. So believe it or not, I was watching this early morning right here in this candlestick right here. All right. So if I draw a level here, and then if I draw a level right over here around 110 and 111, right? So A firm, right? I saw a bounce here, right? And I couldn't get in, right? So I decided to wait for confirmation for the next candlestick to form. And indeed, we started to see the 10 and 21 starting to move away from each other, meaning we can see an expansion of price to the upside, right? And so, and you're welcome, Joel, you're welcome. Glad that you were able to get something out of that, and hopefully you're able to trade Apple off of those levels. And so A firm here, I was actually looking at it and I was trying to get in, right? Just 2 contracts, right? It wouldn't hurt, right? So these contracts are weekly contracts that are expiring on Friday. I was trying to get in at 115, right? At the break of 115. It's an early entry because resistance is around 116.50-ish, and I need to see a break of 116.50-ish to get a confirmation that we're breaking up to the upside. So I decided to take a risk, and I was trying to get filled in at 115 with that contracts, 150.50-ish to be exact, and I couldn't get in, right? And so obviously, they outbid me there. The buyers were making those contracts move way too quickly, and I got outbid and just absolutely just rocketed up higher, right? So this right here, this is the type of action that you want to see for a bullish action here. We see increasing volume as the price is going upwards, right? Instead of volume coming down, we're seeing increasing volume at the breakout, right? So this is a textbook breakout here out of resistance, and so as we're heading up to all-time highs here, right? So if we go back to the daily time frame here, let's take this out, right? We're also seeing an ascending resistance forming here, right? So this could be a triple top here, right? But I've seen a lot of stocks that have a lot of more increasing volume, and especially today, we saw 53 million in volume compared to the average 19.65 million volume, right? So I'm going to expect, if we gap down, and we should gap down a little bit, or at the very least consolidate below 130, but that should be another dip opportunity to buy and potentially scalp back towards today's highs of around 139-ish. And if we are able to break above 140, we should see a retest back towards 145 near all-time highs. Okay, so I would expect, let's go back to the 15-minute time frame. Well, there we go, right? I expect us to come back down to 130-ish, which is also around 127.50-ish, which is a intraday support here, as we're kind of flagging. And then we saw an immediate, even more amount of volume coming after this break of this bullish pennant here. Okay, if you guys want to know what this tiny micro intraday chart pattern is, this is a bullish pennant. I've seen a lot of these forming lately. Okay. And so we saw even more volume coming in as also the market started to push as well. So A-firm got even more volume coming in thanks to overall market sentiment becoming positive as it broke out of that range today. So if we were to compare back to back here, so around 10 to 11 Pacific Standard Time, right? We started to see a lot more bullish volume on SPY on the overall market, and then on A-firm at 11, we saw a lot more volume coming in as well. Continuous bullish volume thanks to the continuous pushing of SPY here. Okay, so A-firm, good name to watch tomorrow as well. To scalp, I'll personally be watching as well. If we come back to 127, okay, we have an opportunity to scalp towards 131.50-ish to 132.50-ish. And if we see a lot of selling volume after that, we can see potential head and shoulders pattern forming as well. And if that happens, we can see this pennant support being used as the neckline here. And so watch out for that. But if we have a lot more volume coming in as well, continuous buying volume from today into tomorrow, we should be seeing another push towards 135. Okay, so those are both their probabilities and possibilities there, Mr. Pudding. So make sure you watch out for these levels, either to the upside or to the downside. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to be finishing this live soon, so I have to eat dinner here in 3 minutes here. So if you guys have any last tickers here you guys want me to go over, please tell me. We have about, I would say, around 2 minutes and 30 seconds here. That's enough to go over a ticker. But if you guys don't, I actually have another free game play here. FDX. So FedEx. FedEx here is very, very interesting. Why? Well, because first of all, here's the first pointer. What caught my eye? Number one, oversold on the daily. Okay, it's still oversold. Our RSI is at 29. Okay, even if I didn't have the RSI, I would know it's oversold. Well, because my experience, and I'm able to kind of tell at this point if something is oversold. And if you guys want to know why it's oversold and why we had this huge gap down, earnings. They reported that they're going to see a squeeze in their profit margins, and that's very, very bad because. And make sure you guys remember this, companies from now on, from this point forward to 2022, 2023, the next 2 to 3 years, are going to be focusing on improving their profit margins because of the fact that we have a global supply shortage. Okay, so companies who are able to ride through that calamity of having not enough supply compared to the demand, the global demand that's been rising. They should be able to see a lot more increase in their share price and a lot more institution eyeing their share prices as well. So these big hedge funds are going to be looking at companies that are doing really well, profit margin wise during this global supply squeeze, excuse me. So FedEx is one of those names that are not going to be looking to do good in this global supply squeeze here. And so FedEx is going to be something that you guys can short for the long term and also play for the short term here as a bounce on oversold conditions. So overall, right now, I think FedEx is going to continue to go that lower because first off, there's not enough support here after if it breaks 216 here. Okay, so if it breaks 216, this is the line in the sand here, 216. So if you break below 216, we're basically going to possibly see a waterfall back down towards 165, all right, and 161. So if that happens, that could be a very, very good trade to a long-term trade that you can actually have a short position on and have a good return there. So what I wanted to tell you guys about this opportunity here, this free game opportunity, is that you guys can actually play this oversold bounce here. So today, great action. All right, we are basically following the SPY as well again. Right, so we had that initial oversold bounce. Right, if I look at the R side, so we had a gap down, oversold bounce, and then sell off. And then after that, in the early morning and late into the morning, we saw this consolidation happen. Okay, and then we broke out. All right, so it's the same story as SPY and every other name out there. And I still think that we have enough room to come back to 226. So if we kind of come back down, retest, right, $222, we should see a bounce, right? And then if we're able to break above 224 again, we should see another push back towards 226.50-ish. So make sure you guys watch FedEx. And also, on a daily time frame, if we break 226, we should see another revisit back to 228. Okay. Let me make a line there. All right, so that's a quick free game there for you guys if you guys want to trade FedEx for oversold bounce in the daily time frame, because we still have a lot of room to run here back to the upside so that we are not oversold. Okay, so if we're able to come back to 228, our RSI should be around 39 or 38, around there, right? Almost 40. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope for the people who stayed for my SPY trade today, learned something. All right, and Joel, I hope you learned something on Apple. And Mr. Pudding, I hope you learned something on A-Firm as well. Thank you for your submission. I rely on your submissions there, so thank you very much. And yeah, that is my live today. I'm almost at the 40-minute mark here. I'll see you all on Friday, same time, same place. And if you guys aren't subscribed, and you guys need to be subscribed to be able to comment on my live chat. All right, so have a great rest of your night, and thank you all for attending.